Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our afternoon edition of Big Brother 22 All-Stars live feed spoilers. We have in this video not only the Power of Veto players, but the Power of Veto winner, and there is potential for things to maybe get even messier than they already are. It has been a pretty messy 24 hours as it is.
There are spoilers ahead, and Davon is one.
Is that the greatest spoiler warning I've ever seen? It might very well be, but okay, well, we're going to have the Davon victorious party through the remainder of this video, so...
Davon.
So get your party hats on or get ready to trample on your party hats if you hate this. But anyway, if you guys do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and support us further. Check those links to the store and also our Patreon.
Okay, so the players were Danny, Kevin, Tyler, Ian, Davon, Enzo, and Davon won.
It's her first ever, major competition win. It is so exciting. And, here's the thing. I know a lot of people probably are, okay, why you guys push so hard for Davon? To me, a lot of it is this, that Davon and Ian, I think they're kind of cut from a similar cloth in that they love Big Brother. They love the game for the sake of the game, and I think they represent a lot of us fans out there. When you look at me, I do not believe physical strength is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, and I'm leaning more into the nerdy side of things, the underdog side of things. We are both firmly in that camp, and while, I do like players that are like Tyler, it's harder for me to lean into someone like a Cody who's an all-American athlete type person. I don't relate to that, but I do relate to Ian, and I just like Davon. I mean, I just want to root for the underdogs. We all have our favorites, right?
And it's so much fun to me that she's waited so long to have this moment where she gets to go into the diary room and wave the necklace around and say something funny. And the irony here is that I'm not actually sure strategically this is a great, because it's putting her in a really, really tough position that we'll get into. But on a personal level, I am very, very happy for her.
On a personal level, I'm very happy for Davon. I think that's very cool that she won, but of all the ones that she needs to win, this is a tough one because her and Danny have really been building something here, and this is putting Davon in a much better spot in the house. Danny has won HOH. Didn't put up Davon, didn't, renominate someone else that was Davon when David used his power. They are building something. It feels pretty real. And so even with that, now Davon has a veto. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for her to use it. And it's so crappy to say that, because Kevin's also on the block, and that is someone that, Kevin has really been attached to Davon. They've had a really good relationship.
This is so unbelievably complicated, just sort of thinking all of this through, because I was sort of thinking in my head entering this competition that, okay, maybe a lot of the people who aren't either HOH or on the block would potentially just throw it, because I was just Enzo already talked about not wanting to put himself too far out there, even if he's been more pro Tyler than some other people, and I didn't know how much they would gun for it. But yeah, Davon and Kevin, Kevin has considered that sort of final two material right there, and like you said, Davon has been also getting close to Danny, and I know I'm about to say a word that may make some people freak out here, but Danny basically said that Davon was going to be untouchable on her HOH. Now, it's not her untouchable. We're not going into that territory here, but I think Danny had no intention, even if something crazy happened, of making Davon a replacement nominee after the veto. She was never going to be going up.
No, and I think Kevin has made the same sort of mistake that some other people in this game have also made, like Danny with Cody, where Kevin has been putting a lot into Davon, and Davon obviously likes Kevin, but that Kevin is making her this ride or die without really knowing for sure that Davon has also in this car with him and ready to go till the wheels fall off. And they're not exactly in that same place.
And I think that's kind of evidenced by what happened today on the feeds before the competition, where Kevin and Davon, they sort of talk some things through, and Kevin was throwing out some of, Kevin's theories, which not always great, but I think sometimes he just says stuff to say stuff, and
At least he's trying.
He was like, what if there's an all-guy alliance? What if something else? I think he was just trying to push Davon into a position where she would want to use the veto. And I listened to this conversation carefully, and she was sort of like agreeing a lot, and he sort of suggested at one point, Danny may not like it if, you would pull me off the block or something like that happens. And Davon was just sort of like, oh, it kind of is what it kind of is. But she didn't sign in blood that she was going to remove Kevin from the block either. At least I didn't take that away from that conversation.
No, I didn't either. I think she did her best to not promise Kevin anything and still leave it open that if she does decide to use it, then, she will. But she's not necessarily trying to get his hopes up either. But the fact that Kevin even brought up the idea that maybe Danny doesn't want to nominate another person because it's going to get really, really messy here at this point. If she keeps having to nominate people, that he kind of understands that Danny's in a weird spot and that Davon may not want to make it that now she has to nominate another person. And then that sort of starts to shift the focus back over to Davon, or maybe that's what he thinks.
Davon did tell Danny a good bit about this conversation with Kevin, so that may be a sign that she is ultimately going to go along with this. Now, we'll talk through, though, the what if Davon does save Kevin, because I think that is so complicated. So you've got Tyler up there. Ultimately, then Kevin comes off.
Yep.
Danny has to name someone else. Because Christmas can't use her power to save Tyler, because Tyler's already on the block.
Yeah.
If she puts Christmas up there, Christmas can be like, no, I'm going to block this with my blocker power. What happens then?
Yeah, then I think we might be in a situation, regardless of everything that happened, that we might see Ian on the block. Because otherwise she is going to be mostly turning on her own alliance, unless somebody in her alliance is willing to go up as a pawn to get Tyler out.
That's the theme of this week, really, and that's why I'm so excited. I'm like more excited now about strategy stuff than I've been in days, because there's so many different directions it could take. Like for Danny, if this situation happens, she has to start to weigh, okay, how much do I want to get Tyler out of the game versus, how much do I want to keep my alliance happy? Because we already know some of the bros that are in the game right now, like maybe they want Tyler out eventually. They're not super gung-ho about it right now, which is why I think if the nominations stay the same, there's still a pretty good chance that Tyler ends up staying.
Yeah, there is a good chance that Tyler's going to end up staying, which again to me is a little bit crazy, because we are deeper into the game now, where it's sort of, it's not week 1 or 2, it's like week 6 now, and you're starting to get too far into the game that if you leave Tyler in this game, Tyler is going to win this game. Even if he's in an alliance with you, he's probably going to beat you. So why leave him in the game? I think they can take him out a little bit later, but Tyler wins stuff. People like him. He's very dangerous.
And Danny has to be careful about this, because she can't be too much like, Tyler's the worst. I hate Tyler. I got it. Because then she's going to make people within the Blob Alliance sort of mad at her. But she wants to have him up there, obviously, because I think she's hoping that sort of slowly over time there will be influence that shifts in that direction. And eventually they'll start to think, like you're sort of saying, that, okay, Tyler is super dangerous and he has to go.
The thing that I am the most happy about with this, besides the fact that Davon has won, is that Davon is building herself into this bigger alliance. And I never thought that any of the underdogs were going to be able to break through really at all. And it's really amazing to me that she's been able to stick around this whole time and now actually really work her way in with some of that alliance in a way that's real. It's not the Slick Six BS alliance. There is something that is building here between those two women.
I think it's something that could propel her for a little while here, because we can think about it sort of this way. David now, because of David's antics using his power and then refusing to acknowledge that he did, he has painted an enormous target on himself, so that David's gonna find himself in some particularly deep you-know-what as soon as he is eligible to go on the block again. I think David is probably in a much more threatening place right now than Danny.
Yeah.
If Kevin sticks around this week and Tyler does go, if someone like Cody ends up winning HOH, don't you think he's gonna try to go after Kevin?
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, I think Davon's relationship with Danny and that Danny doesn't have a ton of influence, but she has enough influence that she could at least sort of scoop up some other people to keep Davon safe at this point. And, Danny's in some ways a bigger target than Davon at this point, because Tyler has been trying to get her out. She has been irritating other people in this alliance. We are deeper into the game now, where people will start taking shots at their own alliance members because they can afford to lose one or two. There's only like 3 people on the other side of the house.
This is the big eternal question that we can sort of hover it all above us, put it in bright lights above. Okay, there's probably not enough space to do it, but this is the big question. Is Davon willing to risk Kevin staying or leaving this game in order to ensure her trust with Danny remains intact? Because the ideal situation here, obviously, is that Tyler goes, Danny still has her wish of Kevin being up there, her not having to replace anybody. It's the win-win for Davon, but it is tremendously risky. Do you want to risk Tyler staying in this game for a lot longer when you have an opportunity to try to get him out now?
Well, the other problem is that Kevin holds grudges. So if Davon doesn't use this veto and Kevin stays, we've already seen how he reacts to being put on the block or something like that. He's going to feel very betrayed. That is just going off of how he's played this particular season. I think he's going to feel really, really betrayed. And if Kevin wins an HOH, then I can start to see something like Davon being in trouble a little bit, because he held on to that Janelle grudge for weeks.
It is a risk. Everything with Davon right now, Davon is basically just having to tread on the thinnest ice possible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, because we came on like immediately after we found out for sure Davon won, I'm sure there may already be conversations happening right now, and we'll have more information probably soon about what the veto really was. The one thing I've heard is that apparently this was one of the weirdest Power of Vetoes that they've ever done. And it seems like it was over in that BB basement room or whatever we want to call that now.
Cool. So that means that we may actually have like a brand new veto that maybe we haven't seen before. That could be exciting.
I know, right? Like, I'm excited for that. This was one of the things I was hoping about from the start, is that with all the limitations, maybe this is causing them to be a little bit more creative and create a competition that is evenly balanced and fun and exciting. And the fact that Davon won it suggests that, okay, maybe this is different than the standard competitions, because we know, unfortunately, she hasn't been very good at a lot of the ones we've been seeing time and time again.
Yeah, and while I love stuff like hide and go veto and the slip and slide and all those types of different competitions for HOH and veto and everything like that, I would like to see some new stuff come in.
All right, well, we will be back soon to talk more about everything that is going to happen, because I am so fascinated about this week now. This is the most interesting week, I think, strategically, we have had all season.
If I had to throw it out there, if I think she's going to use it or not, I do not think she's going to use it.
I don't think so, but I think there's also enough time that I think there's still a chance. And that's what's exciting about it, is that at least there are decisions that have to be made. And usually after all of these, it's just kind of like, wow, all right, we have nothing exciting for Dave.
There's a lot for Davon to think about, but I think strategically, if I was her, I would unfortunately have to sacrifice Kevin. I think that working with Danny's going to get her a lot further in the game.
I think the important thing is that while there is a part of me that is like, okay, Davon shouldn't have won this, and I think, it is putting her in a tough spot, at least it's something she can put on her resume,
Yeah.
and maybe it can get people like Enzo to just shut up about her doing badly in challenges.
Yeah, that's the end of that, Enzo.
Yeah, I love you, Enzo, yo, but you gotta stop talking, yo, about Davon sucking at competitions, yo. You're a little obsessed with it, yo.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll let this go, but we'll end this. What do you guys think about Davon winning the veto? What do you think she should do? Should she run the risk of taking Kevin off, knowing that there could be consequences? Let us know in the comments, and if you do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, support us further, check those links to the store, our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.